Good evening. In the fifth video, I'll be talking about the benefits of trees. Why does one advocate having trees as part of the agroforestry? Naturally, all forests have to have trees, but how do trees benefit? There are many cliches we all know about. That trees are good. We all get into programs of tree plantation and caring for them and all that. But the real importance of trees needs to be understood for adhering to this uh, or getting more of these friends on a farm with more conviction. So here today I'll be talking primarily about the benefits of having trees. The first one, of course, is uh, very much known to all. We've been reading about it since childhood. Is that they prevent erosion of the soil. Erosion of the soil caused by winds or by water. Now that is something quite evident here. You might be seeing there are trees, there are weeds which have been taken out in preparation for preparing this patch for the next crop. There are crops standing here and dense cover otherwise wherever there is no crop. It could be weeds, it could be fodder, whatever. Every bit of land has got something or the other growing there. That would naturally prevent any soil from escaping from here either by wind or by flow of water. I am deliberately standing towards the lower side of my farm. It has got a gradual inclination and I am near the lower part of it, and one can see whenever there is a heavy rain and as the climate changes, we all know rains have converted to episodal bouts. They come in bursts, where destructive bursts at times, 5 to 6, 10 inches of rainfall in a 24-hour cycle, and it's really destructive in the sense that it takes away everything. And here also it happens. I get torrents of water coming from land which is higher than mine and passing through. They do in the channels that they create. Naturally, they take away water, but bulk of my soil remains safe. The same, I wonder whether it can be said of my neighboring lands. As you can see, this is one more aspect I try to keep, uh, including the black demonstration versus the white demonstration that I have here. Now, in these open fields where there's nothing to prevent water from coming, taking away the soil, and getting that is what actually contributes to silting of and choking of rivers and nalas and dams and so on. So this is the first one. The second benefit of having trees is trees actually produce water. Uh, and in the larger context, I'm sure everybody would have read about how trees act like water magnets. They actually attract rain. And how does that happen? Well, there's uh, there's water which evaporates from the oceans and forms clouds. This is all basic lessons that we learnt in uh, our school days. As the clouds form, they are carried over the land by the prevailing winds, but that is just not enough. What actually triggers precipitation is reaching a level of a kind of a critical mass for a cloud, where the level of um, humidity in the air causes droplets to form and fall. Now that is where the role of trees come in. Wherever the trees are, they also respire. They keep respiring every minute with the breath, just like we take out steam. You would have seen steam coming out. It is very clear on winter chill days when you can see steam puffing out of your nose. The same thing is happening here. All trees keep on perspiring water also. That helps in their cycle of life, the movement of sap and all that. And that's a different issue. But the point is, they exude humidity. Now that humidity adds to the humidity of the clouds, and that actually precipitates precipitation in a manner of speaking. So that is one. The second one is a bit more intricate, where I keeps telling maybe research, the dichotomy between knowledge and wisdom, or marmagya and visheshagya. One has to live with them to understand. I call my trees, I see them as the locks of Lord Shiva. It has been mentioned in our legends that Shiva was the one who actually uh, harnessed the power of Ganga and made her useful for human beings. That has a very deep meaning, much more than we understand in the commonly stated stories. The trees have their own canopy. Now look at this one. This is a khamar tree, a timber tree, bang in the middle of my farm. This will be featuring here more often in the later videos also, as the later crops are. We'll just talk about this. Now, how does a tree increase the groundwater level? When the droplets fall from about 2000 plus 2000 feet, 3000, whatever, the nimbus clouds, when they let the water go, they come to the ground with a fair amount of force. Now that force also would be destructive if it was just allowed to fall on the ground, as it is in my poor neighbor's farm, which I keep on showing up as the thing not to be followed. Anyway, back to the tree. As the drops reach the canopy, the force is broken by the leaves. When the force is broken by the leaves, the water slows down and falls in drops to the ground. As it falls, there is a lot of humus here. Now that doesn't permit it to create a runoff very easily. Of course, when there are torrents, water would run off, but the humus and the carbon in the soil holds the water. As they fall on the ground, gravity pulls them down, and uh, everybody takes the easiest route, and water molecules, water droplets cannot be faulted if they do do the same. They follow the uh, path of the roots, which have already broken a path for them. They follow the taproot, the laterals, and the capillaries that the laterals have, and water actually flows along them down below, because that's the easiest path which is already broken through in the soil, and it goes into the ground as far as gravity would take it, or it reaches a reservoir, and that is how groundwater gets recharged. Now, again, there's another thing to understand. This again is not mentioned in any of the textbooks or whatever I read on it, but this is a feeling I get, and I keep calling myself a bodh karta more than a shodh karta. So the feeling is that as the water seeps down, there is an equilibrium between uh, uh, at one stage, equilibrium is reached between the force of gravity pulling the water down and the force of hydrostatic pressure, which is causing the water to move up. As the respiration process carries on, water evaporates from there, and through the cells, the hydrostatic pressure keeps on drawing up water from the ground. So there's a balancing point where the two balance out, and that is how every tree, any person who knows about trees would tell you, has a hydraulic cone. It's like a kind of a inverted bucket which is underneath every tree. Just as a tree goes up a trunk and then opens out, the similar pattern, there are roots, and the form of the hydraulic cone is roughly in the same pattern. Now that is the factor which lets trees have this kind of tenacity, where they can continue drawing water even during the peak of summers, and even if there are delayed rains, or even if no rains for a year or two, in very bad drought conditions, the trees have learned how to survive. So that is the second point, and this is the water mostly that we tap during when we punch bores incidentally. Anyway, that again is a different subject. So back to the utility of trees. The third benefit is of phenomenally higher yields compared to fields which are open and are chemically farmed, the one that we see in the neighborhood. Now here uh, there are crops below the ground, on the ground, that is tuar that you see here, trees of various heights from small, short to medium to tall, in laid out in random fashion, not in an orchard form. You've got a teak here, followed by jamun and two amlas, katahal. The one beyond is mango, and so on and so forth. These are custard apple trees. So the effort is to capture all this sunlight that is incident on this piece of land and convert it into biomass. Now I use the word biomass and not just crops because the variety of produce here uh, does not warrant only crops. It could be any kind of biomass which is of human use. Could be timber, could be medicines, could be food, and other things which are of human use. This high yield is also augmented by the fact that this piece of land, this piece of agroforestry here, is functional and productive throughout the year, 365 days a week, a year, 24/7. Because the land is never fallow. There are some trees which always are there, even if there is no crops because of seasons, and they're generating something or the other. They're generating biomass. They're building up the capacity for fruit. Bamboo is growing, timber is growing. So this, if you just look at this piece of land as uh, a kind of a production entity, this is working 24/7 and 365. Whereas the fields which are open without any trees and are done chemically are functional just for about 7 months in a year, with um at best 2 to 3 crops in a year. Right now they are lying fallow right now because of the very heavy rains that we have had in the last few days, and they have already gone very late in the sowing of the next crop. So this that is the third aspect where agroforestry scores over chemical farming, that the impact of climate vagaries, the vagaries of climate, are not as badly felt on my piece of land as they are for the open fields. I have already overshot the time that I had given myself for these videos by quite a lot, but I feel it would be unfair on the audience, as well as I won't be on me also, because I won't be able to explain what is being done here. As I walk past, I'll just show you the various arrangements to do vertical farming. That is, these bamboos are carrying up Garadu creepers. I'll be getting about 4 to 5 kgs of Garadu in each creeper. We got amla and guava here. They also get covered by Garadu, and by the time it is time for the guavas to fruit, the Garadu would have dried away. There in the backdrop also you can see very luxuriant growth of vegetation and biomass, being a better term for it. So just wanted to underscore the point of utilizing all the land that is available and utilizing all the sunlight that is incident, because we are actually harvesting sunlight as any forest does. In a forest also, if you would see, not a single inch of land is left fallow. There's something or the other happening there, and that is the model that I wanted to underscore in this video. I have, as I said, I have already overshot the time, so I'll conclude it here. And there are some benefits of agroforestry still left over, so we'll tackle them in the next video. Thank you.